anything with a lot of facts is always controversial. We all know that. And especially anything, the subjects I teach are the subjects they tell people not to discuss if they're going to a party. Don't discuss them. And so this is what I do here. Anyway, it's my 18th year.
Yay!
And,
Yay!
So it's still going. Oh, there you are. Okay. So that's the subject tonight. Is it 6 yet? I have no clue about the time. Okay. You know what? I'll start with a few things now. Well, it's okay. Well, a few people trickle in. Sometimes the building is hard to find for people who don't know the campus, and then some of the rooms are hard to find. Now, I usually get a much bigger room, but because of the argument, which lasted for about 3 weeks, which I did not have to go and do anything myself, but because of that, I'm late. So because I'm late, I missed out on my usual bigger room. So please try and make do with this. Are you okay? The chair's comfortable? Yeah, okay. So I learned a couple of things last night, which I think people should know. I listen in sometimes between 1 and 5 in the morning when I get the news that I'm interested in. And last night, there was a conversation, I guess it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little later, in Britain between the Russian, not the president, but the other man, and he was responding to this tale of the chemical Assad and the chemical attack on the people in Syria, the chemical attack. Well, first of all, last week when I called a few old friends of mine in New York, most of them are dead now, but there's still some around. And they said, oh, there's a joke going around here. And everybody's saying, okay, was it Assad or Mossad? That's the joke in New York about the chemical attack. So last night when I saw this, I heard, now I'm quoting this, I was careful to get this down, I still do shorthand. And the Russians said, there is no evidence of a chemical attack in Syria. We have asked for inspectors and they have not come. And the woman said to him, she was a real pit bull, and she said, well, what about those awful pictures of those children and blah, blah, blah? And he said, well, if it was a real chemical attack, you could not hold one of those children. You would die yourself immediately. So he said, I don't know who took the pictures, but he said, it's been 3 weeks since it happened. We have asked for inspectors, they have not come. To this day, nobody has been over there to get the so-called evidence of a chemical attack. All right? So he said, we did not agree. Now, she said to him, why didn't you join in at the Security Council, whatever, when everyone wanted people going over there inspecting the so-called attack? And he said, we did not agree with the U.S. blaming Syria. In other words, this request blamed Syria and said, oh, we want inspectors. Well, if you need inspectors, how can you blame anyone? At that point, you can't blame anybody. So he said, that's what we did. He said, we put in an alternative request for inspectors with no names being charged. How could we? So that's what was being talked about last night. So, and then he said, and of course I agree with him, he said, besides, the CIA has misled their own government many times before. And she said nothing. There was no response to that. And of course, my comment is the WMD, the false charge that allowed them to go into Iraq, well, it's the same MO. I mean, they never changed their MO. So they want to use this so-called chemical attack to get into Syria. I mean, you know, Libya, Gaddafi was doing everything they wanted. They wanted all that gold in there. So this is a banking thing, all right? Every country in the world, especially Arab countries that have no usury, they cannot charge interest. So those countries had to be taken over. And now the Iraq that had no debts, and everyone had free university, everyone had free health care, and Saddam, the bad guy, told everybody, oh, if you can't get health care in your country, you can come here. The bad guy, Saddam, who had less people in jail than Bush did, okay. So then they had to go on and get Libya in the chain, and now they want Syria. But, and now I'm sure all of you know this, Wesley Clark, General Wesley Clark, shortly after 9/11, told everybody there are 7 countries already planned well before 9/11 that we are going to invade. They're all set up and they're doing them now. They're halfway through. It's a banking thing. So now Iraq owes a debt to the IMF, okay, which I call the International Mugging Fraternity. They owe a debt to them. And that's what will end up with all these countries, especially the ones where the people got the profit from the oil. It went to the people in Libya, it went to the people in Iraq. So now they're inventing this chemical thing, another false flag, so they can just go into Syria and other countries. Any countries that have no usury, they're all Muslim countries, all right? Of course, they're going to be illegally invaded, and the banks that are crucifying us are going to be set up there. Now, they didn't have to bomb us because our politicians gave the Bank of Canada to them. They just handed it over. In 74, Chrétien started borrowing from their pals. So now our Bank of Canada, which we own, the 12,000 shares are owned by Canadian citizens. However, Goldman Sachs has been running our bank under Rothschild for a long time now, and we now pay $50 billion every year to simply use our own money. Now that's what they're doing over there, but they're invading illegally. So please try and understand that. So there is no proof that there's even been a chemical attack. Yeah.
Isn't that the basis of all this also, the expansion of Israel?
Well, come on, they're in on this. That's the joke around New York. The old-timers I know. Was it Assad or Mossad? But this latest thing is, there's no proof that it even happened. And no inspectors have gone there yet to gather up the evidence. So that's what we're left with here, another little fairy tale. So these papers go very, really in detail. Some of them you're not going to like, about what's happening to the women. So if you want to leave something, just leave it up here. All right. There's even a paper there about the women in Israel who go to the Wailing Wall. They are not allowed to go there, only the men. So they're up in arms about that. So we're discussing religions today, but I also wanted to add what is happening to women around the world and what has been happening ever since these religions started up. So as a woman, and I know it's disturbing to some of these religious men, as a woman, I feel I do not need some priest to tell me when I can talk to God. Okay? If there is a God, I can talk to him anytime I want, and that's how it should be, whether there is one or there isn't one. I'm sorry, the priest has no right to tell you when you can talk to God. And I heard today that it's also the Holocaust Day, so I'll just be reading them all out here. If I'd known, I would have put them all on the board, but I have them on the card. So here we go. These are all the Holocausts that have taken place on this wonderful planet where we have two kinds of people, predators and prey. So these are the Holocausts. 60 million in the slave trade. They had horrible, horrible lives. The first bank involved in the slave trade was in 1361, and the banks made a lot of money on the slave trade. Chained together in the bottom of the ship. They got ill. They were all chained together, just thrown overboard. So 60 million dead in that, which went on for 200 or 300 years. 60 million in the Bolshevik Revolution, which was funded by Wall Street. 1 million in the Armenian genocide. 50 million in World War II. 10 million in the Ukraine, starved to death by Stalin. 11 million Jews, gypsies, gays under Hitler. And 11 million Germans after the World War II by Eisenhower. And 1 million plus Palestinians, 1944 to the present. And of course, Japan had a nuclear holocaust, even though the emperor had surrendered. So these are all the Holocausts. So we go on to Korea, Vietnam, then we start with the American natives, and now the Canadian native women. Nobody knows.
Excuse me?
Who's investigating
As
this?
far as I know, the Holocaust Day is on January 27th.
Well, they announced that it was today. I don't know who they are, but I thought I might as well discuss it. It was announced on the news. So, and there's one other thing. Sunday, the 30th of this month at the Friends House. Does everyone know where the Friends House is?
No.
Bedford. If you get off the subway at Bedford and walk north on Bedford to the next corner, the first corner, 60 Lowther. It's a big, big house, and they have some good stuff there. And on Sunday, I was told at the health show yesterday, I was told that the title of the talk on the 30th is The Atomic States of America. And I found that quite interesting. And it's at 7 p.m., Sunday the 30th at Friend's House. And I will be bringing a book with me that I don't think anyone knows about at this date. It was banned a long time ago, written by two scientists in the 70s whose credentials would fill pages. And the title of the book was, and I have it, somebody in my class actually found it and brought it to me. There he is in the back. And the title is Depopulation by Nuclear Pollution. That's the title. And these two scientists have immaculate credentials. So I have that book. I'll bring it with me to let them know there is a book. I guess you can get it, for $1,000 somewhere on the net. I know it's quite expensive. But anyway, one of my students gave me that book. All right? So, I just want to quote, everybody knows who Jefferson was, and he had his own Bible. There's the Jefferson Bible. The American Jefferson, and he took out all the mythical stuff and just left in nothing but the teachings. Whatever the lectures were by Christ or whoever, he took out all the other stuff around and just left the lectures. It's called the Jefferson Bible. Anyway, here's one of his quotes here. In every country and every age, the priest has been hostile to liberty. That's Jefferson. So, first of all, we're going to talk about how we got the religions, all right? Now, I'm going to be very blunt and brief because I only have the 2 hours. How many of you have read The 12th Planet by Zechariah Sitchin? Okay. I'm recommending you get this book. He's written about 8 or 9. He passed away a couple of years ago. I knew him quite well. And this book called The 12th Planet tells us our real history and how we got are religions. Okay? Zechariah, the books are out there. You can even get them in paperback. And he was a Sumerologist. He was mentored and taught by Kramer. Noah Kramer was his teacher. His books are in all the universities, but Sitchin's are not, because they contradict the myths of religion. But thousands of tablets, I mean thousands, and they haven't dug up all the tablets in Iraq, and they can never dig up any more because of the DU. You can't go on a dig now, and that was done on purpose. If you're on a dig even for a couple of weeks, you will get a cancer. DU is everywhere. It's in the air, the sand, the dust, it's everywhere. So all the tablets that are now in the museums in Europe and America, he and 30 people, it took them ages to put the whole book together, but it came out in '76. And I started reading the stuff then and the books he added thereafter. So I'm just going to tell you briefly. You can get the book so that you don't, if you don't do the research I do, then you can't come and argue with me, you know what I'm saying? I think it was Clarence Darrow said, I wouldn't dream of arguing with the certainties of ignorance. So what he meant was, if they're not doing the research, tell them to go do it. And then if they still have an argument, fine. So briefly, this is what transpired, okay? And then we'll go into what's happening with the women and the children. Whatever they do to the mothers, the women, will happen to the children. Realize that. Children are also targets. And that's sort of a double sin. So Jefferson was right, and he, I think he wrote another book called The Tyranny of Religion, okay? So, and one of them called Jefferson an infidel. And then Jefferson responded, what is it that men cannot be made to believe? Nothing. They can be made to believe anything. There was a guy on Nori 2 weeks ago talking about the world was flat. The earth is flat. He knows he can prove that it's flat. He's never been on a space station where you're so far away from the earth you can see it's not flat, okay? And neither is the moon. But he was on Nori saying that yes, he can prove that the world is flat.
There's 30,000 videos on the
Oh, I know,
YouTube,
Flat Earth Society.
Flat Earth, proving with all kinds of evidence that the Earth is flat.
But if they ever went up to a space station, they can see.
Have you been up to the
Do
space
they not
station?
realize they can see that the Earth is round?
Have you been up to the place? Space
No,
station?
I haven't.
How do you know?
Well, I know, and also, let me tell you, these tablets, listen carefully, the first priests were astronomers. We know because we have evidence. We have evidence that the Antarctic, those maps that were drawn hundreds or thousands of years ago, we found out quite recently that they're quite true after you go under all the snow.
Right.
There have been maps drawn all over this planet that could only have been drawn from the air. Only have been drawn from the air, and the measurements all work out. So I'm recommending, now this is what I do every year, but you reminded me of that. I'm recommending, if you have some spare time, everybody take Physics 101, please. Introductory physics. We'll see that you do not have to believe this claptrap that people like the flat earth guy talk about. Physics 101. I also recommend a course I took at Trinity years ago, Logic 101. Please, please, I beg of you, Physics 101, Logic 101, so that you can just say to these people, you know, the fact is, because nobody likes facts, okay? But those are the facts. So I just want to show you what has happened recently right here what has happened right now in this modern world, okay? Now, in Ontario, a program designed by a proven and jailed pedophile is being introduced into schools in Ontario. And when, which I just call a no-win situation, she's approved of that. The man's already in jail. He is a proven pedophile. It's his program so that kids about 5 or 6 are now going to learn about the various means of sex that they could do. They will be taught to masturbate as if they can't find out on their own, okay? But for 5 years and 6-year-old children, this is ludicrous. So this is what's happening right here in this modern day, here and now. It is not normal, I'm using that word, what it means, it's not normal for 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. They don't even care about sex in any way. I grew up, we all had the neighborhood kids. I grew up out in the beaches, and I can remember we had friends. We had about 15 kids on the block. One of them was a spoiled little girl, only child. She was always peeking on what her parents were doing. And so she'd entertain us in the garage. We were all there in a group, and she'd be going through everything, and they did this, and then they did that, and then they did. And so after we heard all this, we all looked at each other, and we said, why would they do that? 5 and 6. So now this program is going to shove that right in their faces before they're even thinking about it. That's what we said. 5, 6, and 7, we're all standing around. Why would we do that? Let's go build a fort. That's what happened then, yeah?
Well, actually, what I read was that when they're 5 and 6, they'll be learning body parts, and that, but when they get to about grade 5, they'll be learning about anal intercourse and that sort of thing. That's what I read.
Even at grade 5, I remember grade 5. Come on, I had a wonderful teacher. I was still learning how to divide. I was, with the math, I didn't even like it. She kept me in at recess. Even then, I'm sorry. No, you can find out your parents. What are your parents there for? Just don't tell her anything. She'll learn it at school. What parent would say that? Come on, people have parents. That is not the school's business. No, it isn't. So it's like the joke where finally the parents get around and say, I've got to talk to you about the birds and the bees. And he says, oh, you mean they do what we do? So kids find out from other kids too. Like we did. We just all stood there, oh, okay. How exciting. So anyway, this program that's coming to Ontario, I thought of this thing that Bush introduced called No Child Left Behind. I changed it slightly. I've got No Child's Behind Left. So I'm sorry, that's what happens, okay? So now to get back to the what's happening here as regards the kids, the women, and it affects the mothers. Whatever they're doing to the kids affects the mom. Now here's an interesting piece of information. I just think this is, now this is biological. There is a link between sexual activity and aggression. Seems most likely electrical stimulation of areas of the brain which elicit an immediate penile erection are within a millimeter of sites which produce a rage response in the male brain. So that's why when young men join the army, they channel the libido. The libido is channeled into aggressive, into killing. That's what they have, that libido there between 18 and 24. And also your reflexes are faster than they've ever been in your life, or they will be again. And so you can channel, the libido in the male can be channeled into killing.
How is it channeled?
Stimulating the brain, they have drugs. You think people in the army don't get drugs? Come on. Yes, they do. So they know about that, and they know they can channel the libido right into war, okay? Now, I like this ad. This is from a paper 2 days ago. I just love it. The Epoch Times. I like the paper. I should send them a letter. Now look, maybe you can't see this. Here's the ad for buying the Epoch Times. It shows the guy with his coffee at breakfast. He has got the paper. He is interested in what's going on in the world. And there's the wife with her back to him at the sink. Oh, is that really how it goes?
That's how it should be.
He's got the coffee and the newspaper. She's right there at the sink. 2 days ago. So how far have we come, okay? No, I'm sorry. Now, I love this one. I've got to get my glasses for this. I forgot we got them out. But we have not come that far, all right? No, we have not. So, and of course, one of those papers down there is all about Sharia law. If that ever comes into North America in any way, the women's rights will go back 100 years.
It's coming.
So, no, it won't. They won't let it in. No, they won't. Because, especially in the States, it's against almost every amendment. It's against the Constitution. Okay?
So there's a lot of things.
Now, okay, let me get on with this. Now, freedom of religion, that's great. Believe whatever you want to believe. But as long as it's not harmful to anyone else, fine. I don't care if you believe in the tooth fairy. It doesn't bother me. Believe whatever you want. But as soon as you have a belief that harms other people, no. You cannot do that. It's against human rights. So my word that I like to hear is, what about freedom from religion? Does anyone ever talk about freedom from religion? Remember, religion is a social control. It's based on fear, not love. It's based on fear and punishment. So it's a social control. So now, this first guy that I'm talking about, oh, here it is. Ontario's sex ed program was created by Benjamin Levin, a pedophile who on March 3rd, 2015, pled guilty to 3 of 7 child sex charges. 1 count of possession of child porn, 1 count of making written child porn, and 1 count of counseling a sexual assault. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. The moment Premier Wen found the man who created her sex ed program masturbates to kids, showing them, she should have scrapped it without hesitation. And that was the opinion of 80% of Ontario parents. Why did she not? So now here's another case, and they've just come to court recently. I believe this man's name is Blackstone, but there's a breakaway Mormon group out in Vancouver. I think it's called Bountiful, where they live. Okay, I just want to read you this. This is just amazing, and this is this day and age. It's polygamy. Their religion is polygamy, they say. This man, Blackmore, has 24 plus wives and 140 kids. Now, these people are going to have to be very careful that they don't start marrying each other, or there's going to be some really weird looking people in Bountiful, okay? Anyway, they marry. Now, a lot of the girls are 12. They don't have any choice. At a certain time, when the boys in the group reach puberty, a little older, they're sent away. And then the men that run the group, and they're usually older men, like this man here. He's an older man, he's in his 50s at least. And then they take over, and basically it's an excuse for pedophiles. And of course they were allowed to do it when the law of sexual consent was 14 in Canada. So So if they got a girl 12 or whatever, they got away with it. And it says here, at one point, his brother removed 12-year-olds from Canada to be married in the U.S. Do you think these children have a choice? They're called wives? Please. So there's about 1,500 people in a remote corner of BC, and he's on trial now for the third time. And they say, "Are you pleading guilty?" All he says is, God's laws are above state laws. So they know, of course, as all religious fanatics know, what God wants. Okay? That happens to be God's laws. You can have a 12-year-old bride, and you can have as many of them as you want. So that whole thing, he's in court now for the third time, and they call themselves breakaway Mormons. The Church of Latter-day Saints, I think, is the other name for it. So that's what's going on right now, on trial for the third time. Now, here's another one. An Amish bishop is accused of forcing women into sex. He told the women if they had sex with him, they would make better wives. So I see about a dozen of them there, all leaving the court in Cleveland, and that's what they were told. So men invent religion, okay? Not one woman has ever invented a religion. We don't need to. We create, okay? So it's always the men, and they invent it for their own convenience. Now here's another one I love. The Catholic University is now offering exorcism classes. You can go and learn how to take the devil out of somebody. Exorcism and Satanism classes. Now, of course everyone is sane knows there's no Satan, there's no devil, blah, blah, blah. And the word Satan, the old Hebrew word, simply means adversary. An adversary. The guy with the horns, the tail, and all that medieval stuff. Anyway, yes. No, and I don't know who said this, but it's true. If there is a God, he neither brings harm, he doesn't save us from it. He's bound by the same rules of physics as we are, and he gave us all free will. So, if pay attention to the Bible scholars, not the Bible thumpers, please. There's a big difference, okay? So, and then this whole Armageddon thing, we're going to have Armageddon, and a lot of people can't wait. Armageddon was inflicted by a pharaoh on some people in Israel in 1500 BC. Armageddon has come and gone 1500 BC. So it's not going to happen again, okay? So, now here's another one. These clerics, Abdul Rahman, 41, he's facing the death penalty. The clerics are demanding death for someone who converted to Christianity. See, this has nothing to do. There have been some good teachers on this planet, but how many people in any religion actually follow what the teacher said? They keep inventing, oh, God wants this, he wants that, we all know. Hey, was there a time when the big finger came down out of the sky? The big booming voice? You know, no. So the clerics, it's all about power, control, and of course, lies, and keeping women under control. The matriarchy was before all this crap. There was a matriarchy. In fact, now I have to tell you this. When I came to this school here, I graduated in '74, but I took a class on religion, and the three religions, the Judaism, the Muslim, and the Christianity, were all represented by three of these clerics in the class, okay? So anyway, they said, now, you have to hand in a paper, tell us what you think about crucifixion. So to me, this made sense. So I said, okay, I think the first crucifixion was a woman. Of course, they all look at me. So I said, okay, this is how it happened. They're all hunting and they're all gathering. And this is how they make their living, the men. But then they've discovered that the woman has a time in the month when she bleeds. And it's fascinating because she bleeds and bleeds. She doesn't die. She just bleeds, but she's okay. So when they discovered that they had some part in the children coming, so they thought, okay, you know what? Let's save ourselves a lot of trouble. And these 3 guys are still listening. I said, so what they did was they tied her to a tree. They tied her to a tree during that time, and they left her there to attract the animals so that they didn't have to run after them. The blood would attract all the animals, and if she didn't die, goody goody, and they got to kill some animals. Well, I never got that paper back because one of them took it to use. Of course, you know how many professors steal good papers here? Come on, you have an excellent paper. There were only 10 people in the class. How could they lose my paper? You know, I typed it on an old Underwood, no computers, whatever, and my paper was gone. But I thought they'd all die with their legs in the air when I gave my version of the crucifixion, but why not? Why couldn't it have? And there's plenty of religious books showing a female on a cross. Yes, there are. Okay? So, no, that was, they had my paper. So, here's another one. Now, this was back in April. This was April 2006. The mother, here's a mother of a 4-year-old boy who was sacrificed to Kali by her husband. He killed the son, sacrificed it to Kali. The mother's there. This is what happened, okay? Back when they give the story of, what's his name? Abraham coming up the mountain, and Jehovah's behind the bush, and he says to him, you know, I want you to kill your son, get him ready, you know, prove you're loyal to me. So he's just getting ready to stab him, and suddenly behind the bush you hear, oh, just kidding, just wanted to see how loyal you were. Well, I got that in Sunday school, and then I said, wait a minute, why would God play a game like that, so horrible and sadistic? And so this nice little woman who taught Sunday school, I was about 12, she taught Sunday school. She looked like a little pigeon, big brown eyes, and gave me the usual stuff. Well, nobody knows the mind of God. And I said, okay, whoever that was, it's not my God. I never went back to Sunday school. It was United Church. I never went back, though. But I always knew even as a child, who was that guy? Horrible, horrible. If that's God, we're all doomed. And I said that to a Hebrew friend of mine. He goes, yes, we are. You know, so anyway, this guy kills his son to a Hindu deity, and the mother is left with the dead child because he makes the decisions, okay? He could be all kinds of an idiot, but he makes the decisions. Now, the first girl, these girls are about 7 and 8, they escaped the Boko Haram, you know, that group. They're a terrorist group, but I believe they're in Africa or Nigeria. And the reason the girls had to escape, they put the bombs on the females. They do not allow the males to go out with a bomb strapped to them. They do that to the girls. And these girls, here's their picture here. One looks about 6, 7, 8 years old. They escaped. So I'm sorry, and I love this. This is another modern thing. I just love it. Now, the Human Rights Commission says it's okay to listen to the hate talk about women on the rappers. I've heard rap music. It's been around for years. You listen to some of it? My God, it's wonder. I mean, but they get away with it because it makes money. Money. Money can dissolve any law there is, okay? Enough money. Now, this is another arts and culture in 2012. Now, the ladies, the Maasai tribe, they make the most wonderful beadwork. beautiful dresses, you name it. It's probably worth thousands of dollars, but that's what they do. But they're selling it. They started selling it to stop female circumcision. So I'm going to be quite blunt here. It's going on. You have the map there, and one of your papers gives you the whole map where all this this goes on here. It's in Egypt. It's in all these places. And now they found it's going on in America. People have come there and are paying doctors under the table too. Now, it's not a circumcision, okay? What happens is the female, everything on the front of the vagina is cut out. No anesthetic. Can you imagine that? The labia are removed. The clitoris is removed. Then all this is sewed up, allowing a very small opening for urination. They get infections. Some of them die on the table. It's agony to have it done. They have terrible things happen when they have a baby. But this is what's being done, and now they found it was going on in the States, being paid for under the table. And they don't have long lives. They have nothing but problems from the very time it's done. And they are taken at the age of 12, even before puberty. They're taken by their own mothers to the person, the people who have been doing this. They're not doctors. This is a self-taught art, okay? So the child is taken at the age of 12, and she's told, we're going to celebrate then. You're going to get a lot of gifts. And that's what they tell the girl. And unless you have this done, no one will marry you. So the purpose of having all this, and this is the most sensitive, this is a sensitive nerve center. Can you imagine the agony it would be? They have the most sensitive nerves in the body. And many, many countries, Africa, parts of India, this is done still. And so the girl sometimes dies, gets infected. These are not doctors doing this, and they get paid, I think, $10 in our money for doing it, even in countries like, Tanzania. Tanzania, where people make $1 a day. The guy who does this work, he's giving $10 to take away anything that would make a woman enjoy sex. The whole purpose being, if she enjoys sex, then she will leave. She might do something with someone else. But if she can't enjoy it, she will be faithful forever. That is why the women are given this agonizing torture. So I'm saying, I copied it all down. And this is what is being done right now, and they want to keep doing it, okay? In fact, I have a lot more. It's quite disgusting, but anyway, let's get to it. And every religion is not for women. The mildest ones, the woman is not an equal. Now, here's something here, I just love it. The mother of a 13-year-old girl, she was killed. The mother was surprised that she was killed because she said she thought her husband was only going to break her arms and legs. And that was okay with the mother, okay? This is recently, 2007, okay? So there is a woman that's horribly wrong, yes, with this behavior. But, this is an honor. What's honorable about killing a helpless girl because she was raped? See, we're told that if little Axa was her name, had only listened, her father and brother wouldn't have murdered her. Oh, if she'd only listened. So they let them off with less than a first-degree murder conviction, and this honor-killing victim is still being blamed for what happened to her. So if the woman gets raped, she is the one murdered. It's an honor killing. This is called an honor killing.
Where was that?
Well, this was in, I don't know what city it was in, but I think it was here, somewhere here, because she says we have to do more to educate immigrants. Yes, we do. It happened here, okay? So, but it's done all the time, and the woman is always blamed. If she had only listened. And on the bus, way back on the bus, when 5 of the men raped that woman, 5 of them, and everybody watched and nobody stopped them, okay? So it's in Tanzania, the genital mutilation, but it's many other countries. I gave you the map. And aside from that, there's another thing. Remember this guy, this judge that had to step down because he said to the woman, why didn't you keep your knees together after she was assaulted and raped?
Yeah.
Why didn't you keep your knees together? With some of these guys, I would have said to him, you might have been raped as well. It's not just women that get raped, I'm sorry. So he had to step down. Well, of course, keep your knees together, you'll never get attacked, everything will be wonderful. So at U of T, this was a while ago, they were talking, there was a big thing about Sharia law. So in Montreal and Queen's Park, you've got it down there, were 2 of the places that saw enormous protests held by the International Campaign Against Sharia Law in Canada. In Canada. So, and that's what will happen if it's tried to be, if they try to put it through. So, and here's a cute little one, I just love this. Burqa-clad female killers are terrorizing ISIS, the thugs, by randomly assassinating the death cult's members. According to published reports, 2 jihadists were recently targeted for oblivion on the streets of the terror group's spiritual home of Mosul. A killer wearing the traditional Muslim outfit, which ISIS requires women to wear, produced a handgun and dispatched the 2 shots before disappearing into the night. ISIS, who previously shot women for appearing in public without the burqa, now wants the garments banned. They wore all this crap and they couldn't see them. They shot 2 of them. So if it's for their convenience, the law will disappear right away, okay? That's what happens. And, oh yes, I can't forget this. Now, I just love, you're gonna love this one. This is all going on now, okay? So, some 5.2 million of South Africa's 50 million people are infected with AIDS. However, there are 150 rapes a day, and those are the reported ones. Okay? And here's another little goodie here. This is on the outskirts of Lake Victoria in Kenya. Now, these men are called widow cleansers. When I first looked at that, I thought, does that say window cleanser? No, widow cleansers, and this is what they do, okay? Okay, male cleansers for hire who go from village to village to perform the service. Now, this is what they do, okay? It's called widow cleansing, and most of the men are HIV positive. So what happens is, one man in particular commands attention. As soon as he begins to talk, the rest of the group listen deferentially. He's tall and slender with a faraway look in his eyes. He has called the men together to talk about a tradition rarely spoken about in public, the practice of widow cleansing, whereby the women, after the death of their spouse, are pressured into having unprotected sex, ostensibly to allow their husband's spirit to roam free in the afterlife. See, people will believe anything, okay? That's what religion is about. So he can roam free. So here's a quote. I knew my brother had died and they told me it was AIDS, but I thought a tribal member could not die because of that virus, he said. So I cleansed his widow and I contracted HIV. That is what killed my first wife. So They're getting together to talk about this, whether they will keep doing it or not. And not only that, now, the other part of it, which has been happening lately, I just love this part here. Increasingly, the male cleansers are being brought in, and even the cleanser operating in this other town is even having sex with recently deceased women at the behest of their families. Oh, she's dead, can you? All right, okay. It's not the same all over the world. Some parts are a little different than other parts, all right? So the movement of Men Against AIDS that encourages men to play a more prominent role in Africa's response to HIV. So this guy who's doing all the widow thing, he says he takes the antiretroviral drugs and practices safer sex with all his wives. 2 are HIV positive, the other is negative. Isn't that wonderful? How much were you paid to cleanse? Asks a man in his 30s. The price of a cow. Just one night and you've got a cow, replies Ochanga, shrugging his shoulders. My grandfather did it, my father did it, so I was not afraid of doing it.
Sounds like a depopulation.
It sounds like idiocy. Men have invented that, okay? Necrophiliacs, and people obviously who might be so ugly they don't get enough sex. You know, that's another thing people never think about. What if these men don't have one girlfriend? What if no one wants them? If they're part of a religion that says they can screw anything they want, of course, that's going to be convenient, okay?
You get a cow out of the deal.
Pardon? Oh yeah, you get the cow. You get the cow as soon as you have cleansed the widow by giving her HIV. So as I say, a course in logic and a course in physics 101 would be helpful, okay? And of course, rape is a weapon of war. Rape is part of war. All those wars over there, nobody ever talks about how many people Americans raped. Yes, rape is looked on as a weapon of war, and they don't even talk about it. So if you're a woman, you're in a country that's being invaded, of course, you're going to be raped. And in some places, you're even raped by your own countrymen, using the war as an excuse. Oh, they'll never know. I can rape her now. Come on. This is how it is, all right? So it's a weapon of war, and the women are still mutilated. Women are looked on as a chattel. Oh, and a witch doctor. Now, I love this one. Now, listen to this. This is really good. A witch doctor in Africa, I think it was South Africa. If you rape an albino woman, you will be healed of every disease. Because they do have albinos in Africa. So the albino woman, people are looking for her. If I was an albino, I'd get the hell out of there. You rape an albino and you will be healed. So this is all going on at the present time, okay? So the world is a very strange place. Some societies are evolved and some are not, okay? So, okay, the 240 wives, and they're all in court saying, it's all about my religion, okay? That's my religion, I'm allowed to have any number of wives, God told me. And that reminds me of the old joke when they had the new asylum, and the new asylum was so modern, and they were giving tours around the new asylum, and one of the doctors showing people around, he said, we are so organized here that every floor is devoted to a separate disease. Now we said on this floor, we only have people who believe they are someone else. He said, oh yeah, we've got a few Napoleons, a few Alexander the Great, a few Hitlers. But this floor is for all those people who think they're someone else. So he said, here, I'll show you. Well, the door was open and everybody had their own little room. And the doctor knocked on the door and he saw the guy just puttering around in there and he said, "Tell me, who am I addressing?" And the man said, "Napoleon." And then he said, "But my good man, how do you know that you are Napoleon? He said, "God told me."
Yeah.
And from the other room you heard, "I did not." So there you have it. There you have it, okay? So we're going to talk about now how we got ours, all right? And remember, the first priest was an astronomer. They knew everything about the heavens, all right? So, about, what, I'm going to kill myself on this thing. Here. About 450 years, 450, oh, they're breaking already. 450,000 years ago, okay? This is all in the tablets. These are facts, just get the books. The people landed here from a planet that's part of our solar system. And every 3,600 of our years, it comes through. It doesn't always come through in exactly the same place, so things happen. If you look around the solar system, Uranus is on its side. It's not, it's like this. It's not upright, it's on its side, and it's been that way, as far as they know, for a few million years. There was a time when Venus went out of its orbit and was called Lucifer, the bringer of light, because in the daytime you could see the light from Venus. And it went out of its orbit, and everybody was worried on this planet, so they called it Lucifer. And eventually it went back into a normal orbit. But while it was going everywhere else, like a meteor, a comet, whatever, so Lucifer means bringer of light. It doesn't mean the devil, okay? And they gave it to Venus when Venus was going out of its orbit. And also, when I went to school, and public school, they told us, oh, we could all move to Venus. Venus is just like the Earth. And then Velikovsky, who was really a psychoanalysis person, he said, no, this is my hobby. And he said, Venus is very hot, about 800 degrees. We couldn't go there. And later on, when they sent the mariner, he was right. Velikovsky was right. But I was taught in public school. It's just like the Earth. We could go there. But since they discovered all the tablets in Iraq, because that's the cradle of civilization, only now they turned it into the grave, all these tablets, they give all about the solar system, what was in it, the planet that came through. It's all on those tablets. All they're talking about the years when it comes through. So they came here, 3,600 would be one of our cycles. So at this time, they came through. So before the flood, which was 12,000 years ago, they were here. They were here all this time. They were here for gold. And in South Africa and other parts of Africa, you can talk to the corporations. They'll tell you, yeah, the mines were working now. They were worked 50,000 years ago. Yeah, they were. And we know they were worked with machines. And now we're working the same gold mines. They will tell you that, but you won't hear this in school. It's all shut down because of religions. They contribute money. This school is funded by all the banks, the religions, people that want you to shut up and not know anything. That's who funds these schools now. So they came here for gold. Now, this is where we get to the chemtrails. The chemtrails we have in our skies now, they're telling us that's so that we won't lose our atmosphere. It's good for us. That's why they're doing this. But that's not why, because these people that are doing this now, they are aware what's in these books. So if they had wanted to really save our ozone and not just hurt us, they would be using gold. These people came here for gold because they knew that gold is the only metal that does not come down. Okay? they made it so that it was like almost like a vapor, and it stayed up. It kept the ozone holes covered. So they came here to get that gold. They thought they would get it out of the oceans easily, but no, they couldn't. They had to actually dig. They had to do mines for the gold. This is what they came here because their planet was losing all its ozone. And they said, if we don't do this now, then we will have no life on our planet. And they had a big meeting, like a congress, about whether they knew people were running around here in Africa. Yes, they were. We were at that point. We were just running around here. And they had a big meeting saying, is God going to approve of us giving these people a genetic boost so that they can work in the mines for us? Then they decided, since we will die if we don't get this gold and bring it back to our planet, we have to do this. So they decided, okay, it's to save our lives, so we'll have to do this. So you're not supposed to, every planet has its own evolution. You're not supposed to interfere with that. But anyway, they did in this case, and they did genetically give us, or whoever was here in Africa at the time, gave them a boost, enough so that they could work and dig in the mines for the gold. Now that's why they came here. I'm being filmed, dear.
No, I don't know what planet you're talking about right now. Is it that they came from?
The one oh, you haven't read the book. The one coming through is called Nibiru. Okay, that's the 12th planet. And every 3,600 of our years, please get this book. It's more like a textbook. It's got so much information, you have to read it more than once, but please get it. It's got all kinds of references in there, and it's a compilation of all the tablets, thousands and thousands. So this is the real history of our planet. So we were on here, we were running around. They genetically boosted us so that we could work in the mines for them. So this went on. Now, it's so, I can't go right into it in detail because there's a lot to it. But what happened was, one of the people who came here, his name was Enlil. He was the head of the expedition. He was the military man, and Enki was the geneticist. Enki loved humans, Enlil hated them and wanted them gone. So Enki's sign was DNA. So the first translator's like Noah Kramer. He said it's two snakes mating. So Enki, to put it briefly, Enki the geneticist wanted humans to evolve, and he wanted them to stay on the earth. Enlil did not like them at all. He turned out to be Jehovah. Just read the Bible, please, like any other book. Jehovah was the guy that said, did you kill the women and children? No, we didn't. Go back and kill them or I'll kill you. Just read the Old Testament, please. That's why I call it the Old Testicle. It's strictly from that, the Old Testament, all right? And of course, that's where we get the word testament, comes from testicle. If you just look the meaning of words, go back to the meaning, you'll understand. Testament, testify, it comes from testicle. Thousands of years ago, if you had to swear an oath, you had to grab your testicles. Women couldn't do that, of course, and only men were swearing oaths, so that's where that comes from. The same with penalty, okay, punishment, penal institution, okay, comes from penis, okay? Yes, it does, guys. That's where those books get their name. So Enlil decided he didn't like them, they had to go. Then they discovered there was a flood coming. They were still on the earth, and they were having the gold sent back. The moon was a way station. Mars was a way station. I can't go into all of this now, but briefly, people now are saying, well, where did the moon come from? The moon is too big for the Earth. Yes, it is, because Earth used to be a planet called Tiamat, much bigger planet, and it had a piece broke off it at one time when Nibiru came through. It had and that became the, what are those? The asteroid belt was taken off Tiamat. Tiamat was bounced over into the orbit we're in now, and that's why the Pacific has a trench 3 miles deep. It's a big cut. And Gaia, the title for Earth, comes from Sumerian ki, meaning that which has been cut. So the moon was moved over with Tiamat when it was smaller, was brought over to where we are now, and the moon came with it. They don't even know that. The moon is large because the moon was with the bigger planet that we once were. Please get this book so that you will know where we actually came from. So now where we are, we have an oversized moon. And they're still saying they don't read. They see, everybody's in their own little, they don't round out. These scientists don't read the actual ancient history. And there have been nuclear wars here before. And all the engineers know, geologists will say, though, this nuclear site is 4,000 years old. They will tell you that, but you won't hear that in these schools. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Anyway, here we are with an oversized moon, and the scientists still are not reading. These people who came here knew what was going on in our universe, a lot of it, and especially our solar system. They were astronomers. The first priests were astronomers. So if they said to the people, they knew an eclipse was coming, they would say, hey, if you don't do what we say, we're going to turn the earth into darkness. There's going to be darkness. You're all going to die. And the astronomer priests took over. And now when people say, oh, yes, the first profession, the oldest profession was the prostitute. No, it wasn't. It was the priest. And the priest invented the prostitute for the temple. It's all male biased because they do the wars. They write the history. They invent the religions. Wakey, wakey, and look what's happened to all of us because of that. Oh, my missile is bigger than your missile. That's what it's all about, excuse me. The penis, the testicles, now it's missile. Oh, we have a bigger missile than you have. We'll show you, Korea, whatever, who's got the biggest missile, okay? But still the same, they never leave it. So that's what's happening to us now, but in about 3400 AD, Nibiru is coming through again. Now, Zechariah Sitchin said that. He said, yes, just count the 3,600 years. The last time it came through was about 200 BC, I think. So you do 3,600 years from 200 BC, you're going to get 3,400 AD. It's coming through again. So by that time, we should figure out where we're going to be, or maybe when it starts coming in, we will see which angle it's coming in on. They're always different. It might not come near us, but something always happens. So, what?
Excuse me. What kind of proof do we have that this planet came through 200 years BC?
Go and get the books, please. I have to say what Clarence Darrow said. Get the books. And this is being filmed. Get the books.
I have it.
Do the research, okay? So anyway, I only have 2 hours. Just get the books and read them again then, okay?
Okay.
So we have an oversized moon. It's coming through in 3400 AD. So what was happening right up until the flood, that's the last time it came through, okay? They were gathering the gold, they were bringing it home, they were doing well. But Enlil still got sick of the humans. He said, oh, they're always cohabiting, they keep me awake at night. I want to get rid of these people. And Enki said, no, I don't want to. Now, they knew the planet was coming through. So Enlil said to Enki, do not tell the humans. We know the planet's approaching, don't tell them anything. I want them all dead. So Enki had a son back then with an earth woman, and he eventually got to be called Noah, okay? The Bible is like a condensed version of Sumerian history. So as they're coming through, Enki goes to his son by the earth woman, and he tells them, he said, this is what you do. I'll send you a pilot. I will send you the submarine. It wasn't an ark. And you will be piloted and you will be told where to land. But he said, your family will be saved. And so this is what happened with the Noah thing. So as they're getting the gold from the planet, and Enlil thinks all the humans will be dead after the flood. Now, how did the flood happen? Now, everybody who is an astronomer knows this. Everything out there is magnetic. Understand, it's magnetic. Space is not like air. You have to think of space as like a jelly, okay? So when you have an object in space, that's why they say space is curved. But when you have an object in space, it's like it's sitting in a jelly. So all around that planet, the space is curved because the planet is sitting in it like if you put a plum in a bowl of jelly, okay? It's going to curve around the plum. Just see what I'm saying? Space is not air. Think of it like jelly. So when that happens, when the other planet comes through, and every planet has a magnetic aura. It has, not the moon has no nuclear engine in it anymore. The moon was going to be a planet, but then it was attacked. Nobody knows how it got to be the mess it is, but the nuclear engine is dead in the moon, and the same in Mars, okay? So when it came through, say that this is the Earth. Here. Has everybody got this book listed down?
Yeah.
Please get it if you want to know what your history is really about. Please get the book, okay? So here's the Earth. Here's the Earth. And Mars, I think, is somewhere like this. And when the planet came through, it didn't touch the Earth. No, it did not. But the planet is a fair size. So the magnetic pull, this is the Antarctic here. The magnetic pull of Nibiru coming through this huge 3-mile piece of ice was already slushy. This could happen again. And just the magnetic pull pulled it off. The ice shelf came off in the Antarctic, and it caused a wave, many of them, that went up as far as Siberia. And how do we have the evidence for that, Chris? Because in Siberia, there are whole islands made of bones. All made of bones. Velikovsky investigated this. And the bones are all of African animals. They were taken all the way up to Siberia, where they formed islands. So the planet did not strike the Earth. The magnetic pull, and of course the bigger the planet, the more pull there is. This came off, the waves went up, 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 down, up, down. There was nothing left except maybe, there were a few people left up around the Himalayas, whatever, way up above Siberia.
200 BC? Did it happen 200 BC?
No, it happened 12,000 years ago. Before the 200 BC one that went in another direction, get it? So, this is back now, 12,000 years ago. So what happened after that? They went up in orbit until the waves died down. And most people were dead except for Enki's family, the son, and the people in the submarine. The submarine had a pilot. It was not an ark. The animals didn't go, come on, okay? The Bible is a condensation with a lot of myths added to it. So they came through and they said, Enlil was angry, and Enki said to him, but we have to start over. The people have to help us. And because they propagate so quickly, 'cause we have short lives. They lived 1,000 of our years, those people. Your life depends on the planet, how long it takes to go around the sun. If you were on Mercury, you'd be like a fruit fly. So these people, the first 10 pharaohs of Egypt reigned 1,000 years apiece. Then they left. That was their term up. Please get these books. Time is relative. Age is relative. If you are on a huge planet that takes 3,600 of our years to circle the sun, of course you will live longer. It's all to do with your planet. So they were back. The flood was over. So the first thing, they had to have another base for going and coming in space. So where did they put it? The Giza pyramid was never a tomb. It was built the same year, about 10,500 BC, in the age of Leo. BC was the Sphinx was built and the Giza pyramid. They were part of a spaceport. And in the pyramid, to this day, it's the same temperature all the time. Nothing rots in the pyramid. And like musical instruments, they can't have temperatures going up and down. Musical instruments have to be kept at a stable temperature, like the instruments for space. So it was never a tomb, and they were built, both of them, in this year. As soon as it dried out enough for them to land and build that. And I can tell you right now, there is no engineer or scientist on this earth that will say we could ever build that. Sorry. We do not have the technology to repeat that pyramid. We cannot. And there are pyramids all around the earth. There's a huge one in Bosnia. The pyramids were a chain of energy. They did not use coal. They did not use what we use today. And any scientist will say to you, no, the Sphinx and the geologists have already said, and many, many statues in Egypt and huge hallways of huge columns, the engineers will tell you, oh yes, there's a mark of that tool. They had power tools. They had lights. These people were in space. They were from that planet that comes through. I went through so many, inside a pyramid, they take turns. There's no way light. You cannot paint things on the wall unless you have light. And there's no way, and I've been to Egypt, that they were using candles. There's not one piece of candle smoke in any of these pyramids. And yet there are murals, beautiful murals that have never seen the light of day. And if you realize in the Baghdad Museum, before they raped it, were batteries. Has anyone heard of the Baghdad batteries that were in that museum and have been there for a long, long time? They were an assembly line. They were batteries. Some were partially made, some were halfway, some were done. There they were, and they created light. So the fact that we think that this is the first time anyone's been here done, if you go and see the pyramid, all you have to do is look at it and say, there are people that think slaves built this? Oh, stupid, stupid, stupid. There's no evidence that any slaves ever had a village or anything ever near the pyramid or ever worked on a pyramid. No. And it was not built 4,000 and something, they say. No. Both of these things were built in 10,500 BC by those people who came here. All right, you have the mines, you have geologists telling you there was a nuclear war in 2024 BC, there was a nuclear war. Yes. And please go and get these documents, and I have them, I'll give them out the last term. There was a nuclear war in the Middle East. And the geologists have gone to these locations, and they know how old a site is. They're geologists. They said, yes, here's a place here. There was a nuclear bomb dropped here. It was 4,000 years ago. They know how old it is. This has happened before, but we never learn. We cannot learn, okay? We have a learning disability. We're special ed. I call this the special ed planet, all right? Nobody's going to land here because we could do away with ourselves at any time. And they're out there watching us do ourselves in. So there was a nuclear battle back then. There's 4 or 5 sites that the geologists have already said, and as I told you, the corporations in Africa say, yes, we're mining in mines that are 50,000 years old. We're using those gold mines now. Please, everybody should do research, learn to be an investigator, okay? Please, because you're not going to be told anything that you need for survival from any of these funded schools. So, as I said, the 11th commandment is, thou shalt not know. That's the 11th commandment, all right? So you don't know about that one. So what happened was, that's right, because thou shalt not know. Anyway, 12,000 years ago, yes, it came through, it caused a flood. We know why. After everything cooled down, now here's more evidence. All the people in the world who investigate the plants on the planet. Now, this is what they're going to tell you. You can look it up. All the plants on the planet started in the Middle East on the hills. They all were planted on the hills. Why? Because the plains were mud. Mud! Nothing could be planted there. And all the wheats, the wonderful wheats that came out of the Middle East and went all over the world, all these wheats were already domesticated. There was no wild wheat. Everything that was grown over there was already domesticated. They were brought here. They all started them up on the sides of the hills because the plains were mud, and they were mud for a long time. And the scientists will tell you that, and they'll say, but we don't know why. We don't know why. And here's more proof. Every 3,600 of our years, from the flood on, there was another jump in civilization. 3 times, right up till now. But it happened every 3,600 of our years, there would be another jump. More things added, more arts, more science. And every 3,600 years, that's when the civilizations like Sumer took their leap. Another leap. Sumer was an urban civilization, absolutely. And I've been to Pompeii. I mean, that's weird enough. You stand on the street and you see there used to be drinking fountains in Pompeii. You can still see the ruts of the chariots, deep, deep ruts. You can go through the bathhouses. They all had plumbing, steam through the walls. We don't even have that. The only problem with Rome wasn't all of that. They had lead in the pipes. Lead. And that was part of Rome's downfall because there was so much lead affecting the gender and male, female, and all of that like's happening now. And in the end, the emperors were lisping to the crowds while the barbarians came in. So that happened from the lead. But these people knew better. So Sumer was an absolutely urban civilization. And it was destroyed in this atomic war. This war that happened then, it was in the Sinai Peninsula. When they went out in space, they realized, hey, the bottom half of the Sinai is black. What's wrong? Something's wrong. They went down, they dug up, It's all, what is the word, vitrified. And the scientists know there's only one thing that can vitrify sand: atomic, nuclear. So the bottom half of the peninsula was vitrified, and when people talk about, what is that little sea? It's radioactive anyway, the Dead Sea. That's why it's called the Dead Sea. There's nothing alive in it. It's still radioactive, okay? Bombs were dropped all through the Middle East, and now we're so stupid, we're going to do it again. So that's what happened to Sumer within 2 days. And exactly the same words that they said in Nagasaki, the woman who comes here every year, and she said, I saw people melt in front of me. She lived through it. And that's exactly, when you read the 4,000-year-old tablets, they're exactly what that woman said here. People were piled like driftwood in the streets. People melted like fat in the sun. So Sumer was totally destroyed in this war, and they were stupid. They weren't that bright. They had the bomb on the Sinai plateau, and they didn't realize that it was going to blow right over to Sumer. And within 2 days, everyone in Sumer was dead. That's what happened to Sumer. And it was an atomic war. They were fighting over territory, these people. And why shouldn't we be just like them? I mean, they gave us a genetic boost. But some of us are smart. That's what I'm saying. This is a woman's thing here. Women don't need religion. It's a lot of shit. Bullshit and claptrap. And all the people that came out of these were the astronauts that landed here, that became the gods. The gods. Whoever has the best technology becomes God. You can destroy people, so you become the gods. But they tripped themselves up. They had a territorial dispute. They used nuclear missiles. And Enki was the one, and he was the doctor. You know, the sign of the caduceus, of medicine, healing. That is the sign of DNA, the two snakes. Now we use one on the tree. That was the sign of Enki. He was a geneticist, and his sign was the DNA. But it still looks like a snake, okay? We only discovered DNA a little while ago. Really, 60 years or something we discovered DNA? And so this is what happened. So Sumer is gone. All the tablets talk about it and how dreadful it was. The plants died, the people died, the blood streaming from them. All the nuclear effects, they describe that on these tablets. The book, please get the paper back. Get the book anyway. Please read it. So now we're making the same mistake again. So yes, we have a learning problem. So it will be coming through 3400 AD. So the technology they had became the religions. Now there is an exception to these horrible religions with a nasty God. We don't want that. And of course right now the same Jehovah character, that religion is being used to genocide a bunch of innocent Palestinians for 60 years because God supposedly said that's our land. No, he didn't. Okay? Has anyone ever seen a God, okay? And I believe with the natives, there's a universal spirit. We are manifestations of a universal spirit. Now, if we all realize we have a divine spark, we might treat each other a little better. So if you've ever read, what's his name? Kuhn. I forget his first name.
Albert Boyd Kuhn.
Boyd Kuhn, yes. He says, and he's quite right, he said, Islam, Christianity, Judaism are all perversions of the original Egyptian religion. Now the Egyptians, some of them are entombed with a cross on there, and the cross stands for the planet of crossing, which was Nibiru. That's where the cross got its original meaning. The planet of crossing was called Nibiru, okay? And Kuhn said, he said, the original Egyptian says this: every human being has a divine spark Every human being has a divine spark. Now, when they switched it over, and we got the Judaism, the Christianity, the Islam, it doesn't say that. It says the divine spark was in one man. Instead of saying the divine spark is in man, it says the divine spark is in one man, and you can only go through that one man. So there we have it. So who makes all these rules? Like I said, I believe what the natives believe. You thank the spirit, you don't take, it's a universal spirit, we're all part of it. So if you don't want to realize that, you have your choice. You can use the spark, or you can destroy it. You have that choice in your life, okay? So Buddhism and Confucianism are different. Buddhism and Confucianism don't talk about God at all. You know what it's about? And they're long before our three religions, they're long before. The Confucianism comes from the Chinese guy Kung Fu Tzu. Kung Fu, if you know your I Ching, Kung Fu means inner truth, okay? So Confucianism came out of this Kung Fu Tzu, the teacher of inner truth. Now, they have nothing to do with a God. It's about how you treat other human beings. You must live that life. And they don't believe in sacrifice or prayers. Buddhism does not believe in sacrifice or prayers, neither does Confucius. You just go the way. The Tao, whatever, the way. You live the divine spark. You don't get up there and use a religion to create fear. Most of them are about fear, they're about social control, they're about power, and they're always about a lot of money. A lot of money. And what rules the world right now are the banks, the Bible, and Big Pharma. The 3 Bs. And they all sit on each other's boards. Excuse me, yes they do. So Buddhism, Confucianism, it's about you act, you behave. You act out that you are a divine spark. So that's what that's about. So yes, our past history, we've had other wars, these people who came here, some of them stayed here when the others left because they had propagated. So not everybody had the means of leaving the planet. Now if it comes back, we don't know if they're still on the planet. We don't know if they lost their ozone, because their trip, they're like being on a ship. They didn't have to travel millions of miles to come here. No, their planet is elongated. And we're way over here, get it? So when they come this far and they're this close, then they just have to jump off. They were on Mars, of course they were. And then one of the times Nibiru came through, Mars lost its atmosphere. Mars still has water, but it has no atmosphere. You'd have to make an atmosphere on there. And they used it as a way station on the way back to Nibiru. Then once they landed here, then the planet continues back this way. So they needed way stations to get the gold back to their planet. But the people doing the chemtrails here, they're either stupid or they're just lying to us, because all that crap's coming down on us, we're breathing it in. They're not saving our ozone. No. So they have to use the gold. The gold works. It's the only thing that works. And another thing, women in ancient Egypt, all those women that were killed by the Dalcon shield, the intrauterine device, remember that? I did a TV show on that for those people. Because I had one, and I almost died. They were like plastic things with little hooks all over them. You know what the Egyptian women had for an intrauterine device? They measured their little finger, they gave her a gold ring that was inserted. She wore it till the day she died, and it never ever infected anything. Now, why don't these doctors know that? Or they're just too cheap. They do everything the cheap way, and it ends up costing more because people die. Thousands of women died from that Dalcon shield, it was called. It looked like a crab, hooks all over it, inserted into your uterus. And mine cut through the uterus. Luckily, I'd already had my 2 kids and was headed towards my liver. This thing. And you know what they did with them when they were brought out into the law? All the ones they had left, they sent them to Africa. H. Robbins said, oh, we're bankrupt now, and they sent all those murderous things to Africa. So when I tell you there's a book from the 70s on depopulation using atomic pollution, I have the book. So there is a big depopulation thing, and part of it is keeping you all ignorant. You have to search these things out. Nobody's going to, oh, that book came out, look, it's the real history of our planet. Nobody ever announces anything like that. Because we're dangerous. You can't tell us those facts because we will get angry. And especially the women. And this last thing about Hillary and Trump, they both bend over for AIPAC. They're no different. I was writing articles about Hillary back in the early 90s when I was in the States. I mean, they're a couple of con men, her and the husband. But all these young women, you have to admire them, though. They didn't know about her past, so they were out there, you know. You can't do this. We don't want this Neanderthal out there. But they're no different. The 2 of them are no different. But it was nice to see the women doing that. So the fact is, men are usually bigger than women, okay? So the first date, I mean, back in the people hunting and gathering and all that. But women were a matriarchy then, but making fun of it and just saying, okay, the first date was like this. He drags her into the bushes, has his way with her, runs off, and she swells up later on. That was the first date. And it's still happening. Oh, she said something. She showed her ankle. I knew she wanted it. What? This is what they get away with all the time. I'm sorry. There are 2 kinds, you know. Women are not from Mars. And that's a very cowardly thing to rape a defenseless woman or a child. That's cowardly. What's honorable about that? Oh, my daughter got raped, so I had to kill her. Save our honor. You moron. Okay? The brains are all in the little head. Okay? That's what's happening. So we're still doing it. Now we've got all the missiles. Trump is out there. Korea, his missile, our missile, the other missile. Who'll get it first, you know? So it doesn't end. So anyway, that's where we've come from. So the other thing about religion is this. People who have compulsive disorders, okay, obsessive compulsive disorder, they have all these rituals to keep them safe. Somebody's given them a horrible fear, and they keep doing these things, washing their hands 50 times a day, turning the light on and off 50 times. They have a whole routine, and that's OCD, but that's what religions are. They give you the fear in the beginning. They take it away partially by these rituals. But they don't take it all away. They can't take it all away because they want you there under the power. So they take some of it away and you pay them a lot of money. And if you hear something when you're under 6 years old and you get that when you're a child, they have you forever. Religion is just a matter of geography. That's all it is. Wherever you're living, whatever religion was there, that'll be your religion. Hardly anyone leaves their religion. It's all a matter of geography. It's not some divine thing, oh, I'm this way because, no. Where did you live? Whatever religion was on that part of the planet, that's your religion. So, and it's a control. It's always a control through fear. But the Buddhist, if you're always walking in Confucianism, you feel like one person because you're kind. You're kind. That's the end result of having a divine spark. Even I think Maimonides said that years ago. He said, all that words, all that business doesn't mean a thing. Are you kind? Okay? And of course, kind is the old-time word for cattle. Humankind. Human cattle, humankind. But we have gone past that, and now kind means you have the divine spark. You are kind to your fellow creatures, because you know that's all that counts. So that's the wisdom there. Are you kind? That's all people want to know. I don't care what you believe. If you believe you're superior to me and you can invade my country and kill everybody because God told you, no, that is not spirit. Spirit is God has no favorites. If there is a God, even if there isn't a God, all the more reason to be kind to your fellow man. Oh, there's no God. Atheists are very kind people because they think, hey, we have to do that work because there is no God. So the atheists I know are even kinder. I mean, they're filling in the gap because there's no God. And some people's gods aren't kind at all. So you get it from technology. If you land somewhere, like during the war on this island, these planes landed, and the islanders way out in somewhere off Japan had never seen, they were on the island, they're looking at the planes land, they're hiding in the bushes. This is true. 20 years later, they go back there, the same guys on the planes, and they see a complete life-size rendition of the plane. Perfect in detail, done in bamboo. And all the characters, people on the island, have been having rituals at the plane for decades, waiting for the gods to come back. So if you have the best technology and you land somewhere they don't have any, you are God. So that's what happened here, and that's how we got our religions. We got the different gods for this and that and the other. These were all these astronauts, about 60 of them landed here. The head guy, they had all the technology. And you know what Enki said? He landed first, he splashed down in the Gulf. But when he went to Africa to start the mines, he said, these people are annoying. He said, they're running around here. And he said, I trap animals, because these people were meat eaters, yeah. He said, I trap animals and they come and let the animals out of my traps. So the people on earth were not morons. They were living in the jungles in Africa, and they would open the traps and let the animals out. You know why? Not because they were so goody-goody, because they knew these people were eating them. They wanted the people to starve. They wanted the people to leave. And then Enki got his hands on them and gave them enough intelligence to do the work in the mines, and soon they were doing everything. I mean, they were servants, they were doing everything there was in Sumer for the gods. So, then they had their stupid war. Sumer was blown to bits, or people died from the fallout, actually. And then you never hear any more about them. But of course there's some left, because they interbred with us. And so of course we have their DNA, absolutely. And then the scientists will say, okay, why is all the DNA on the earth the same? No matter if it's a frog or whatever the hell it is, it's all the same DNA. That's a bit odd. Why is that? Because they did come here, they did work on us and gave us a boost. That they had their God. They called their God the Father of all beginnings. That was what they called their God. They believed in God, yes. Father of all beginnings, not the mother. So obviously we've taken that on them, okay? So the matriarchy later on disappeared, and because men are bigger, and they found out they actually had a part in birth. They didn't know that. I mean, when you're in the woods and that, the woman had all the power, because, hey, she has the child, where do we come in? And later on they find out where they come in. So that made them feel better. And so the matriarchy was disappearing. But anyway, that's our past, and now some of these religions have taken upon themselves. We'll tell the women what to do. They'll do what's convenient for us, and we'll make them feel that they're not as bright as us. And so what happened? Now we go up to our so-called civilization in Europe between 1600 and, between 1300 and 1610, 100,000 women were burned alive as witches. Yes, Christianity and the Puritans who landed on Plymouth Rock, and I wish the rock had landed on them. So they came over here, and then they started doing it again in Salem, Massachusetts. Oh, the witches again. I went to Salem. So between about 1300, the feudal, and 1609 it reached its peak, 100,000. And you know what they were? They were healers, the village healer. The woman had some land. Maybe the guy down the hill wanted her land. 100,000 of them over that period. It reached its peak around 1609 and continued in America. The Puritans. She's a witch. They were healers. They're the ones who delivered the babies. Or if a woman had a miscarriage, or if she wanted a miscarriage, you went to the village healer if you were raped. You didn't have to live through that. They had power, these women. So they had to get rid of them, and then on top of it, they didn't allow them to go into medical school. And at the time they didn't allow them to go into medical school, the two biggest ophthalmologists in London were women. So first they destroyed all the healers. They took over the doctoring, wouldn't allow the women in the medical schools. So you know what happened? Victorian times, you didn't want to get pregnant. If you were married, just married, you did not want to get pregnant because you knew you'd probably die of infection. The baby might die. Women were in deadly fear of getting pregnant. The midwife was no longer. And so you know what happened in the hospitals where the women weren't allowed. The woman would go in, have the baby, and she'd be fine. The baby would be fine. 2 days later, infected, she's dead. The baby could be infected and dead. You know why? Because these men would come from a cadaver. Their hands in a cadaver, a diseased one, autopsies, come right into the birth room and stick those hands into the woman. Brilliant. We didn't have enough brains to stuff an ant's ass. So then, Semmelweis, one of the intelligent guys, gave a talk to them and he said, wait a minute, you've got to wash the hands. You've got to boil the water. You've got to have clean hands. You can't go into a woman having a baby with filthy hands. Well, what did they do when they heard that? They harassed him till he died. They attacked him. They called him names. They said, And you know what? I read in the paper a couple of years ago, they said to the doctors the same thing here. You're not washing your hands enough. Yes, they did. I cut it out. Simple. So what's been happening is women aren't allowed to go into this field, that field, the other field. Even now, if you want to be a lawyer, as soon as the quota for women is filled, that's it for you. So I'm sorry, these religions, these stupid religions that have to do with blah, 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 rules, 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 how many angels on the head of a pin, they're obsessive compulsive disorders. And they need rituals to make you feel safe because they give you guilt and fear. And the big word is, you're born in sin. Yes, you are. Original sin. Though the last thing that's original would be sin, okay? But none of it's original. But anyway, you're supposed to be born in original sin. And so you have this guilt already. from a child, and you're told this, and they've even changed this word, the word atonement. Well, you say, well, what did I do? You have to make atonement for all that's happened, blah, 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 atonement. Ooh. And so, they have taken a word that meant you feel at one with God and the universe, at one meant. And they have switched it into guilt, fear, and you have to make atonement. How dare you tell a child they're born in sin? People have to propagate. That means life. And no matter how the child gets here, I don't care whether, some women, they don't care. They'll keep a baby even if they've been raped. A lot of them do. They don't blame it on the baby. But rape is a tool of war. It's another weapon of war, and it still is now. And so they changed this. Everybody's supposed to be guilty. Guilty for what? Guilt, fear, guilt, fear. Yeah, we're all going to die. And some people can't wait to do that. Oh, they'll get me out of here. Or people at reincarnation, don't send me back to that place, please. For myself, I think I want a planet of beige agnostics, and then we won't have so many wars. It might work. So anyway, this is what's going on now. And different religions, then they have 100 sects in that religion, this sect, that sect, because they can't agree, okay? So our group, we don't wear shoes, your group wears shoes, so let's separate. They separate, every little detail, let's separate. And so that's all it does, it's stupidity. So that's why they came, and how people became slaves, and and here's my translation of some of the Old Testament here. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for I am the meanest son of a bitch in the valley. Okay? And that's how it goes here, all right? Our religion is hypocrisy, and our God is money. I'm sorry, that's how it is here. So, and of course, we have the usury. Now, here's another little, and this was in the paper, I cut it out. Easter eggs were given in Egypt at Easter time. Easter eggs, now this is the column. It's under big business in the Toronto Sun, and bunnies and eggs are as old as the cross. Okay. Easter is not originally a Christian holiday at all. Easter comes from the word estrus. Your estrus cycle, the cycle that you need to have a child, is O-E-S-T. And there was a goddess that governed that. So the eggs are like the eggs in the woman's body, and in Egypt at Easter for estrus, the woman's cycle. Easter eggs are about life, and the eggs are in the female, and people gave each other colored eggs at Easter in Egypt. That was the original meaning of Easter. Ester, estrus, estrogen, the estrus cycle, okay? And so they were older, that holiday was older than, and it's a symbol of rebirth in most cultures from the earliest times. It's a symbol of rebirth. So, and of course, the Hindu religion, where the father killed off his son recently, the Hindu religion is 10,000 years old. It's the oldest religion on the earth because it became a religion when these people were still here. You know, I'm going to explain the caste system. When these people landed here and they had all the factory workers and the mine workers, that's what they wanted, so they had enough people doing all the work. Now, to get things done faster, if you landed on another planet and you wanted a workforce, and you could just leave it to do what it was supposed to do. What you would do is you would say to the father, okay, your family are shoemakers. That's what you'll be doing for us. Somebody else would have picked up the garbage, the untouchables. You're the shoemakers. So the father, you will teach your son, he will teach his son, and so on down the line. And you will always be shoemakers because it's corporate efficiency. The family does the work of teaching everyone in the family to do that job. So that's how the caste system came about. It's quicker. The parents teach that because humans are born, they live not so long, they're born quickly, you can teach them when they're kids. So this became the corporate efficiency, and somebody else did papers, somebody else did garbage, somebody else cooked. They all had their different jobs, and the parents taught the jobs. And Hinduism goes back 10,000 years. That's the first religion. It's corporate efficiency. They had all these people. They didn't have enough people to teach every one of them. So the families taught their children all the way down the line. Does that not make sense? And that was the first, that's the oldest religion. And they have a caste system, nobody else does. How the hell did they get a caste system? And they just made it worse because now, like the poor people who pick up the garbage and whatever, people get out of that religion because they don't want to be part of a caste. But the people who landed here, and they had all these workers doing absolutely everything. They didn't just work in the mines. They did everything for the people who landed here. Well, that would be fun, wouldn't it? Everybody's doing all your work. You're looked on as a god. Are you going to say to them, hey, I'm not really a god, all right?
So
You're going to take advantage of it.
what brought about the untouchables?
I just said, they have a terrible life. Some of them leave the religion. You got to get those books, Chris, okay? Now, and the other thing about religion is this. If you're on a planet and things are happening that don't make sense, horrible things like your people are dying, floods, everything, tornadoes, whatever, volcanoes overflowing, whatever was happening, you want to make sense of it. So you're thinking, okay, and this is where the religions love this. Okay, we've done something wrong. What's happening is a punishment. It's a punishment. It's coming from somebody who, God, is punishing us for what? And then they invent all these things that you shouldn't be doing. So before, back in the days of the Jehovah and all that crowd, people would sacrifice their children all the time. If they had built a new building, anything, they wanted it to last, and the mothers were gagged so they couldn't hear them scream. The mothers would sit and watch their children being burnt alive, drowned, buried alive under buildings so that the building would never fall down. You always sacrifice the children, and they have to be sacrificed alive. And the mothers would have gags over their mouths so you couldn't hear them scream. Now that was around the same time as Jehovah came along and the other religions started. So all I'm saying is this planet, I don't care what the religions are, that Buddhism doesn't want sacrifice. Sacrifice is not necessary. Prayers are not necessary. All that's necessary is if you actually live the idea of what the real God is, you live that idea. I don't care how much money you have, but that's what happens. People, oh, money, give them more money. I'll get out of purgatory. If you give a few more dollars, I'll be out of it. So, and all these things are thought up. So when traumas happen to people, they want to make sense of it. They can't just say, okay, we're on a planet, the planet's undergoing some problems right now, we're here at the wrong time. We're not being punished, this is just how it is on this planet, so maybe we can fix it. but religions fill in the gap, and then people don't have to do anything. Well, all I have to do is believe, okay? I believe. And you don't have to do anything, just believe and you'll be saved. And I say, well, wait a minute. What am I being saved from? Doing my own work? I'm being saved from doing my own spiritual work. So I don't want to do my own work. And I don't want somebody sacrificing their self for me. That is so barbaric, it's horrible. I'm sorry, no, we don't want sacrifice. Sacrifice means blood. Sacrifice means gift. Fishery, beneficiary, whatever. A blood gift. Okay? So I don't even like that idea. But just to say when I was a kid, Mom, I said, that's like me killing my favorite pet and bringing it to you and saying, this is to prove how much I love you, Mom. Look, I killed my favorite pet. All right? So what we're taught is that God killed his only son to prove how much he loves us. Please. There are other planets with real civilizations. We don't have one. No. No, that's not what it's about. Why does that prove? What if my kid comes to me with his dead pet, why does it prove how much he loves me? I would be horrified. This is not a good idea. So we don't know. Christ was a teacher, along with other teachers. We don't know if this is of God. God said, here's my only son, I've sacrificed him to prove how much I love you people. I didn't ask you to do that. I don't want you to do that. It doesn't prove that you love me. You're scaring me to death. Oh, who wants to spend eternity with that guy? You see what you can put into people so that they think it's normal? Okay. Would you do that? Would you sacrifice, kill your only son to prove somebody that you love them? This is that has been taken and turned into this, okay? To prove, and that creates guilt and fear. But I don't want God to be like that. He's going to kill his only son. What about me? What do I matter? He's doing that to his only son. It's scary, it's horrifying, and it's guilt-raising. But if you're indoctrinated, you will believe. You will believe that, okay? And where does the word believe come from? Here. It comes from the Old English word belie. If I say to you, oh yeah, you say this, that, and the other, but your acts belie what you say. That's what belie means, hypocrisy. And so when you put believe, you believe when there's no evidence. That's when you have to believe. That's all you're left with. No evidence, you have a belief. Well, if it's a good belief and it's friendly, fine, I don't care. But if it's a belief that you should go around sacrificing a lot of people to make, sacrifice is what we base our so-called civilization on. In the wars, so many have to be sacrificed so that we'll sacrifice 100 so that 1,000 will live. But usually it ends up 1,000 are sacrificed so 100 will live, the ones at the top. Am I upsetting anybody here? You don't look too happy. But what I'm saying is, this is not the way it's supposed to go if we are evolving. You can prove you love somebody other ways than by killing your favorite cat. This is wrong, okay? And that's why Buddhism says we don't want prayers, we don't want sacrifice. You live the way. You live what you believe. That's all. Then you don't have to say a word, do you? You just live the way you believe. But no, this is a terrible idea. Sacrifice is not civilized. We're not even a number one civilization. We're not. Blood, 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 blood. It's always about blood. You know, and the more religious, the more blood is required. So the propaganda is that all religions are alike, that they're all one. They're not. They don't say the same thing. Buddhism, Confucianism, Jainism don't talk about God, okay? Salvation and sacrifice, they don't use it. Islam has no original sin. Theirs is pride, okay? So, and it's to submit to the will of God. That's all very well. And of course, Judaism talks about non-Jews are inferior. And of course, in the Talmud, they say that Christ is boiling in his own excrement. So you have to read a lot of books. It's quite frightening what some of them actually believe. Okay, now here are the areas where they know there have been ancient nuclear wars. In India, Rajasthan, wherever that is, India has radioactive ash from 12,000 years ago. There was a nuclear holocaust in the Indus Valley, and Sumer, it says here around 2000 BC. The southern end of the Dead Sea in Israel has unnatural levels of radioactivity. The Dead Sea is also known as Lot Sea. And of course, the radioactivity that destroyed Sumer came from the Sinai Peninsula. Okay? So you've got to do away with the fears and just, if you can face what we've done, something can come out of this. We can evolve from knowing what we've done, and now we're about to do it again. So something's got to hit somebody somewhere between the eyes and say, okay, this has got to stop. This whole nuclear thing and the missiles and the whole Neanderthal way of looking at things has got to stop. So, and the women, of course, are the first to be sacrificed, and the children. And then the women were watching their children die to ensure that a building lasted. We haven't come far. It's only 2,000 years. Now we're going to kill ourselves again. We're going to be back again in the caves. So something has to be done, okay? All this nuclear, it's got to be got rid of. And of course, it's all about myths. So, like I said, the penis, the penalty, the penal institution, the penitentiary, and then there's penetrating the market. Okay? You heard them talk. The army words. We're going to go in, we're penetration, and then we're going to pull out. Will we pull out? We'll penetrate, we'll get in there, then we'll pull out. And we have the biggest missiles, so we might not have to pull out. But this is how they talk, come on. This is how these people talk. It's all according to, you know, it's still the gender nonsense, okay? So, no, all religions are not the same. Some are very primitive, some are very evolved. And now we've got... the whole Middle East is covered with DU, uranium. People are dying every day. The women don't want to get pregnant. They have all these terrible diseases. And the children are grossly deformed. Oh my God, imagine. So they've been told, the women have been told, don't get pregnant. The deformities are gross. This is what America has done over there, okay? America. So now... have I gone over? What time is it?
It's 8:30.
Oh my God, okay. I'm going to inflict 2 short poems about religion, and then we're done, okay? I don't know what we're doing next week, but otherwise, it will be upsetting, so I have to tell you that now. So, this is called No Thank You. I've been in churches, synagogues, and mosques. I've seen the rules, thousands of books recited daily. Stampedes in the middle of groupthink, all heading for the same brass ring. Argument, fisticuffs, wars, politically correct hatreds, praying for profits, deriding each other, all declaring exclusive rights to heaven. I personally have no interest in going to heaven. I know it's empty. And my second one, short, it's an apology to the universal spirit. Scusi, scusi, milli regretti. You didn't make us and then punish us for not being perfect. You didn't sacrifice your only son to prove you loved us. You didn't say thou shalt not kill and then make war on innocents. We said all that. We're such a clever lot. We made you in our image. Naively, we forgot. Though our stories do insult you, you are never not. Thank you.